the hidden contract between the darkness within and the divine above. There's a truth so ancient, so terrifyingly beautiful, that most people will never dare to confront it. It's this: not all who walk in light are seen by the divine, and not all who dwell in the dark are lost. In fact, there is a group, a rare, almost mythic lineage who are watched more closely than any others. They are not saints. They are not glowing with peace. They are what I can only call the dark chosen ones. You may feel like something's been watching you, not with eyes, but with a presence. In your darkest moments, when no one saw your pain, when your hands trembled with rage or isolation, there was something else there. Something older than time, beyond good and evil. Maybe you've wondered why your suffering is so intense, so personal, so cosmic. Why you've never fit in. Why patterns repeat. Why you feel cursed but also oddly destined. That's not just imagination. That's a signal. A signal that you might be one of the dark chosen ones. When I first walked into this path, I thought spiritual awakening was all about light, love, and levitating under waterfalls. But I was wrong. The real awakening? It begins in pitch black. It begins when your ego dies, not in a gentle whisper, but in a scream. When your soul is cracked open like stone under thunder. The dark chosen ones are those who have been brought to the edge not for punishment, but preparation. They are watched by divine forces because they are being forged, molded, tempered like a blade that must one day cut through illusion itself. Have you ever felt that your pain has a purpose? That your trauma isn't random, but ritualistic? That your life is a series of tests nobody else seems to face? Let me ask you this. What if the divine wasn't ignoring you but focusing on you more intensely than anyone else? What if they needed you to go through the fire because your role is not to be comfortable but to be capable? The paradox of the dark chosen ones is that they often feel abandoned while they are, in truth, under the deepest surveillance of divine intelligence. These forces call them angels, ancestors, higher dimensional watchers observe not from pity, but from reverence. Because they know only a few can walk this path and survive. Fewer still can walk it and stay human. And the rarest of all, those who walk it and become divine themselves. But here's the catch. Being watched doesn't mean you're safe. It means you're on trial. Because the dark chosen ones are not merely born, they are tested. Every betrayal, every breakdown, every night when you cried into the void and only silence answered, that was your test. And if you're still here, still standing, still asking questions instead of numbing out, you've passed more than you know. I want to take you deeper now. This isn't just motivation. This is initiation. Because the moment you realize you're not cursed, but chosen, everything shifts. Your enemies become your allies. Your wounds become your weapons. And your darkness, yes, your darkness becomes your doorway. You see, light is easy to praise. It's safe. It's socially acceptable. But the divine doesn't need more robots of light. It needs warriors of shadow who can walk into hell and not flinch, who can hold pain in one hand and power in the other, who can look at their trauma and not just survive it but alchemize it. That's what the dark chosen ones are here to do. You're not here to escape the matrix. You're here to rewire it. You're not here to avoid suffering. You're here to transform it into sacred fire. And that's why the divine forces watch you, not because you're weak, but because you're dangerous to the illusions of this world. Think about it. Why do you feel so different? Why do you sense things others don't? Why does your presence make some people uncomfortable without you even saying a word? It's because you carry a frequency that disrupts the fake. You're like a glitch in the simulation, and the divine is watching to see what you'll do with it. But this isn't automatic. You don't become initiated just by suffering. Pain is the invitation, but awakening is your choice. So I ask you, will you rise? Will you stop running from your darkness and start decoding it? Will you stop begging to be saved and start becoming the savior you've been waiting for? Because here's the raw truth. The divine doesn't want your obedience. It wants your authenticity. It wants you raw, real, and ready to break the rules of this false world. That's why you've been broken, so that the fake parts of you could fall away. That's why you've been isolated, so you could hear the voice of your soul that the noise of society drowned out. And if you're still with me, if something inside you is burning right now, then you're already being watched. Not to be punished, but to be prepared. Remember this, you are not being tested for fun. You are being tested because something ancient and sacred is trying to emerge through you. The higher forces are not watching to judge, but to witness the birth of something they themselves cannot do. Because only humans can turn suffering into sacredness. Only humans can fall and choose to rise. Only humans can walk through darkness and still choose the light, not by denying the dark, but by integrating it. So now I ask you again, are you qualified? Not qualified by resume, not by awards, not by how many affirmations you chant or crystals you own, but qualified by the depth of your pain, the strength of your soul, and the fire in your eyes that still hasn't gone out, even after everything. If the answer is yes, then this journey has only just begun. Let's go deeper now, beyond the surface, beyond the motivational, and into the metaphysical. If you are one of the dark chosen ones, there's something you must understand clearly. You made a contract. Not in this lifetime, not in words, but in soul language before you even took form in this world. And that contract is this: I agree to carry the darkness, not to be consumed by it, but to transform it for the awakening of others. That's why they watch you. Because you agreed to become a vessel for transformation. Many will say they want the light, but few are willing to go where the light is born, deep in the caves of their own pain. And this is where the dark chosen ones are forged. Not in temples, not in retreats, but in the raw, gritty, unprocessed pain of life, in heartbreak, in betrayal, in addiction, in failure. In that moment when you thought your story was over, and yet something within you whispered, "Not yet." That whisper, that wasn't your mind. That wasn't just hope. That was the divine speaking through the embers of your soul, reminding you of the contract, reminding you that you were never meant to live an ordinary life. You were meant to become a mirror for others, showing them that you can fall into the abyss and still rise as a phoenix. That's why they watch. Because if you fulfill that contract, you don't just awaken yourself, you become a portal for others to awaken through your story. But let's be honest, the contract comes with a cost. You felt it. the isolation, the emotional intensity, the feeling that no one truly understands you. That's not a flaw in your system, it's part of the design. You were never meant to be understood by the masses. You were meant to be misunderstood by the many, so you could be recognized by the few. The few who are also waking up. The few who are also carrying contracts deep in their bones. This is not a romantic journey. It's not aesthetic. It's messy. It's brutal. It's spiritual warfare, and you are both the battlefield and the warrior. And yet, in the center of that chaos, there is a stillness, a light that does not depend on circumstances, a presence that is watching not to save you, but to see if you will remember who you are. Now ask yourself, what are you carrying right now that's not just pain but prophecy? What if your depression wasn't just a chemical imbalance, but a divine initiation? What if your anxiety wasn't weakness, but the vibration of a nervous system being rewired for higher frequencies? What if the abuse, the loss, the trauma wasn't the end of your story, but the sacred beginning? You see, the contract can't be fulfilled if you stay in victimhood. That's the trap. That's what the false forces want to keep you asleep, thinking your suffering is meaningless. But the divine forces, oh, they are far more cunning. They hide in plain sight. They don't speak in thunder. They speak in synchronicities, in dreams, in the repeating numbers, in the people you meet who feel strangely familiar, in the tears you cry for no reason, in the music that moves you more than it should, in the moments you almost gave up but didn't. That's how they communicate. Because if you were given the full truth all at once, it would shatter you. So they give it in pieces, in symbols, in silence. And if you learn to listen not with your ears, but with your soul, you'll realize you've never been alone. Not for 1 second. You've been surrounded by watchers, guides, and forces that have been preparing you for this exact moment. So what now? Now comes the most dangerous part. Because once you realize the contract exists, you can't pretend you don't know. You can't numb out without consequences. You can't play small without pain. Once the divine sees that you've remembered who you are, they increase the pressure, not to crush you, but to call forth your power. You are not here to heal so you can return to a normal life. You are here to break the mold, to burn the script, to become a living embodiment of what it means to rise from the ashes. That's why your healing journey feels so lonely, because you're not just healing for yourself. You're healing for timelines, for bloodlines, for generations. And here's the secret. Every time you choose to confront your shadow instead of running from it, you fulfill another line of the contract. Every time you forgive someone who didn't deserve it, you unlock another page of your ancient soul's memory. Every time you choose love over fear, not in a fluffy way, but in the teeth-grinding, soul-wrenching, I could destroy you, but I won't kind of way, you become more than human. You become divine. Now, let me ask you something terrifying and beautiful. What would your life look like if you fully accepted that chaos is your teacher? That pain is your mentor? That the divine isn't outside of you, but watching through your eyes, living through your struggle, experiencing this realm through your courage? You are not the student anymore. You are the curriculum. You are the mystery school. And those who are drawn to your energy, they're not just followers. They're fellow initiates. They are souls who recognize yours, not because of your perfection, but because of your scars, because of your resilience, because of your refusal to stay broken. The divine forces are watching, but not like judges. They are watching like gardeners, waiting to see if the seed they planted in you will sprout through the concrete of this harsh world. They are watching like artists, marveling at the way you turn suffering into symphony. They are watching like mirrors, reflecting back to you the truth you've always known but were afraid to believe. You are it. You are the one. You don't need to be famous. You don't need to be pure. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be real. Real with your rage. Real with your grief. Real with your longing for something sacred in a world that's forgotten the sacred. That is the contract. To be real, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. So the next time something breaks you, remember, you are not being punished. You are being prepared. You are not being ignored. You are being initiated. You are not being watched because you're weak. You are being watched because you carry a code that this planet desperately needs to activate. Are you willing to stop hiding and start honoring that code? Because they're still watching, and they're waiting for your next move. There's a contract you signed before you were born. No, not with ink, not with paper, but with the fire of your soul. You agreed to forget who you were. You agreed to walk blind through suffering. You agreed to carry a weight that would sometimes feel unbearable. And the divine agreed to hide from you until you remembered. This is the contract between the darkness within and the divine above. A sacred agreement that says, I will fall and I will rise. I will forget, and I will awaken. I will suffer, not for punishment, but for transformation. And if you felt like your life has been a series of betrayals, heartbreaks, and spiritual deserts, then congratulations. You are living this contract. You are not forgotten. You are being forged. Here's the truth that most will never understand. The divine does not spoon-feed those it chooses. It starves them, not because it is cruel, but because it knows true power is not given. True power is remembered. And only through intense darkness do we remember who we really are. Have you ever noticed that the people with the deepest wisdom are never the ones who had easy lives? They're the ones who buried loved ones, who lost everything, who stared into the abyss and somehow came back with light in their eyes. These are the dark chosen ones. They are not victims. They are initiates. And you, if you're still watching this, are one of them. But let's take a deeper look. What is this darkness we carry? Is it evil? Is it a flaw? No, it's a womb. A cosmic womb where divine intelligence plants seeds of potential so deep they can only grow through pressure. The darkness within you is not your enemy. It is your portal. I remember a time where I was so broken, I didn't want to wake up. Days blurred into nights, and the silence was deafening. I had no idea that I was being watched not with judgment, but with sacred anticipation. Because the divine forces don't intervene when you cry for help, they intervene when you stand up despite not being helped. That's when they whisper, now you're ready. You see, the divine doesn't save you from drowning. It teaches you to breathe underwater. It doesn't remove the mountain. It awakens the strength in your legs. It doesn't silence the storm. It shows you that you are the thunder. And this is why the contract exists. Because if you were given what you wanted too soon, you would never become who you were meant to be. The divine delays not to deny, but to deepen. Every delay is a divine pause, a spiritual silence, a test of whether you will collapse or evolve. But here's the wild part. Your darkness is not separate from the divine. It is the divine in disguise. The pain you feel, the grief, the rage, the loneliness that is sacred fuel. It's not random. It's alchemical. It is the exact material you need to build your spiritual throne. But only if you stop running from it and start honoring it. Ask yourself, what if the very thing you've been trying to get rid of is the key to your purpose? What if your trauma is not a detour but a design? There's a reason spiritual masters have always gone into caves, deserts, and isolation. It's because in the absence of distraction, the darkness rises. And when it rises, so does the divine. The divine forces only reveal themselves to those who can sit with their shadow without flinching. Can you? Because the dark chosen ones don't escape the world. They transmute it. They are the ones who walk into broken systems and bring healing, who walk into lost communities and bring remembrance, who walk into chaos and build temples not of brick, but of frequency. And you can feel them. Maybe you are one. But how do you activate this contract? How do you move from being watched to being awakened? Step 1, radical honesty. Stop pretending you're okay when you're not. Stop hiding the parts of you that hurt. The divine doesn't need your performance. It needs your truth. Cry if you must. Scream, write, walk, sit. Bleed your soul onto paper. Because the moment you become real, the divine becomes visible. Step 2, sacred rebellion. You were not born to fit in. You were born to disrupt. If the world around you feels fake, that's because you're here to expose it. If you've always felt like the black sheep, that's because you are the shepherd in disguise. Stop apologizing for your frequency. Start amplifying it. Step 3, devotion to the path, not the prize. The dark chosen ones don't chase comfort. They chase truth. They don't follow trends. They follow resonance. They don't seek applause. They seek alignment. So ask yourself, are you willing to walk alone if it means walking in truth? Because the divine watches not your words, but your energy. Not your rituals, but your resonance. Not your affirmations, but your actions. And here's the sacred irony. The moment you stop chasing light and start embracing your full spectrum, that's when the divine reveals itself. It doesn't come to the perfect. It comes to the real. And nothing is more divine than a soul who has walked through hell and still chooses to love. You are not here to be saved. You are here to be awakened. And the darkness inside of you? That's not your flaw. That's your initiation. That's your curriculum. That's what makes you dangerous to every lie you were ever told. So the next time you feel alone, broken, or abandoned, remember this: you are not alone. You are under divine surveillance. Your pain is being watched not with pity, but with reverence. Because you are being sculpted into something the world has never seen before. And the divine doesn't waste its gaze. If it's watching you, it's because you are meant to rise. Not in spite of your darkness, but because of it. Let this land. Your pain is your proof. Your scars are your signature. Your survival is your signal. And your soul, it is not broken. It is blooming.